The truth about passive income from rental properties. Nobody tells you. Let me be honest with you right now, because what I am about to share might completely change how you think about rental property income. If you have ever searched for passive income ideas online, you have probably seen the highlight reels, the fancy cars, the beach houses, and the claim that rental properties basically run themselves while you sleep. Hello, I am Nelius and welcome to this video. Before we dive into this lesson, let me remind you of my free property management course and ebook, How to Manage Properties Like a Pro, which you can download at www.effectivepropertymanagement.com. The links are also in the description below this video. Please also like and share this video and subscribe to my channel. So, let us start with the big question. Is rental property income truly passive? The short answer is no, not really. At least not in the way most people imagine it. The long answer is that it depends heavily on how you set things up, how prepared you are, and whether you understand the real mechanics of being a landlord. Income from rental properties is better described as semi-passive, meaning it has the potential to become more hands-off over time, but it almost never starts that way. There is a spectrum here, and understanding where you fall on that spectrum is the difference between building genuine wealth and slowly burning yourself out managing a property you are not ready for. Now, let us talk about case study number 1. Picture a first-time investor who purchases a single-family home in a mid-sized city. The numbers look great on paper. The mortgage payment is $1,400 per month, and the rental rate in that neighborhood supports a rent of $1,900 per month. That gives a monthly cash flow of $500 before accounting for anything else, and this investor is thrilled. Month 1 goes smoothly, then month 4 arrives, and the water heater fails completely. Replacement cost, including labor, is $1,100. That is 2 months of profit gone in a single afternoon. Then the tenant moves out after 8 months. Now the property sits vacant for 6 weeks while the investor finds a new tenant. During those 6 weeks, the mortgage still needs to be paid. Add in cleaning costs, minor repairs between tenants, and the cost of listing the property, and that 6-week vacancy just cost close to $3,000. When this investor sat down at the end of the first year and ran the actual numbers, the real cash return was far lower than expected. The lesson here is not that rental properties are bad. The lesson is that the paper numbers and the real world numbers are almost never the same thing. And if you are not budgeting for vacancies, repairs, and turnover costs, you are setting yourself up for a rude awakening. Case study number 2 takes a different angle entirely. This investor did something smart before buying their first property. They educated themselves thoroughly. They took a structured course, they built a proper budget using realistic expense ratios, and they understood that a good rule of thumb is to set aside roughly 10% of monthly rent for maintenance, another 10% for vacancy, and another 10% for property management if you plan to use a manager. When they purchased a duplex, they already had a reserve fund in place, a solid lease agreement, and a clear system for handling tenant requests. The result was dramatically different. Yes, they still had unexpected expenses in year 1. A plumbing issue here, a roof repair there, but because they had anticipated these costs, those expenses did not derail their finances or their mindset. By year 3, their duplex was generating consistent monthly income. Their tenants were long-term and reliable, and the investor had enough confidence and capital to purchase a second property. This is what prepared investing looks like, and it is a night and day difference from jumping in without a plan. This is exactly why having access to structured education makes such a difference. And if you want to build that kind of foundation for yourself, my Effective Property Management course walks you through exactly how to set up your rental business the right way from day 1. You can become a member by clicking the link in the description to learn more. Case study number 3 is probably the most eye-opening one in this entire video. This is the story of an investor who bought a rental property and decided to manage it themselves to save money on property management fees. On the surface, that decision makes logical sense. Property managers typically charge 8 to 12% of monthly rent, and if your cash flow is already tight, That fee can feel like a significant hit. However, what this investor discovered is that self-managing a rental property is not passive at all. It is essentially a part-time job. Tenant calls at 9 in the evening about a broken lock, coordinating contractors who cancel appointments, chasing late rent payments, navigating the legal requirements around notices and lease enforcement, dealing with the emotional stress of difficult tenant conversations. By the end of year 2, this investor had spent hundreds of hours managing their single rental property. When they honestly valued their time at even a modest hourly rate and calculated how much time they had invested, the actual return on their investment looked far less impressive. The turning point came when they finally hired a professional property manager. Almost immediately, their stress dropped, their time freed up, and interestingly, their tenant quality actually improved because the management company had better screening systems in place. The takeaway from this case study is that the cost of professional management is not just an expense, it is often an investment in your own sanity and the long-term performance of your asset. Case study number 4 brings everything together and shows what is genuinely possible when an investor gets it right. This is a seasoned investor with a small portfolio of 4 rental units spread across 2 properties. They started with 1 unit years ago, made all the typical mistakes, learned from them, refined their systems, and gradually expanded. Today, their rental income genuinely does function in a mostly passive way because of the infrastructure they have built around it. They use a property management company for day-to-day operations. They have a dedicated maintenance reserve for each property. They have long-term tenants who renew year after year because this investor treats the landlord-tenant relationship as a professional business relationship built on mutual respect. Their lease agreements are airtight. Their screening process filters out high-risk tenants before they ever sign anything. And because they have taken the time to truly understand landlord obligations, fair housing laws, and proper maintenance standards, they have never faced a serious legal issue. The cash flow from these 4 units combined with the long-term appreciation of the properties has created a genuine wealth-building engine. Not overnight, not without effort, but sustainably and consistently over time. This is the version of rental income that the social media highlight reels point to, but they never show you the years of work learning and system building that made it possible. So, what are the actual variables that determine whether your rental property income becomes truly passive over time? The first is education. You genuinely need to understand how to be a landlord before you become one. This is not negotiable if you want to protect your investment and your peace of mind. The second is systems. Having proper lease agreements, screening criteria, maintenance protocols, and financial reserves built before your first tenant moves in will save you enormous amounts of money and stress. The third is team building. Whether that means a property manager, a reliable contractor network, or an accountant who understands real estate, the investors who scale successfully do not try to do everything themselves. The fourth is mindset. Treating your rental property like a business rather than a side hustle changes everything about how you make decisions. When a tenant calls with an issue, a business owner responds professionally and efficiently. Someone who stumbled into being a landlord gets stressed and reactive. There is also the question of market selection, property type, and financing structure, all of which dramatically affect your real-world cash flow. A property with a 30% down payment is going to cash flow very differently from one purchased with minimal down. A property in a stable rental market with low vacancy rates is going to perform very differently from one in a saturated market where finding good tenants takes months. These are the nuances that really make it into the flashy passive income content you see everywhere online. But they are the details that determine whether you actually make money. One thing that the 4 case studies all point to, whether directly or indirectly, is that knowledge is the single biggest differentiator between investors who build real wealth through rental properties and those who struggle constantly. The investors in case studies 2 and 4 succeeded not because they got lucky, but because they were prepared. They understood tenant law, maintenance management, financial forecasting, and professional communication. The investors in case studies 1 and 3 were not failures. They were simply underprepared. And once they adjusted their approach, their outcomes improved dramatically. If you want to shortcut that learning curve significantly, my Effective Property Management course gives you the practical knowledge and frameworks that help you manage your properties professionally from the very beginning. Click the link in the description to become a member and start building your rental business on a solid foundation. The passive income conversation around real estate also needs to address the timeline honestly. Building genuinely passive income from rental properties is typically a 5 to 10 year journey, not a 5 to 10 month one. The investors who market their success online often have a decade of work behind them that never makes it into the content. Appreciation builds over years. Mortgages get paid down over decades. Rent income tends to increase over time as market rents rise. Cash reserves accumulate. Tenant relationships stabilize. All of these factors compound over time, which is why rental property investment is such a powerful long-term wealth building strategy, but a terrible get-rich-quick scheme. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that if this kind of honest, practical real estate content is useful to you, it would mean a lot if you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Every like and subscription genuinely helps this content reach more people who need it, and it tells me that you want more videos like this one. Let me remind you of my free property management course and ebook, How to Manage Properties Like a Pro, which you can download at www.effectivepropertymanagement.com. The bottom line on passive income from rental properties is this: it is real, but it is earned. The investors who make it look effortless have usually put an enormous effort upfront to build the systems, the knowledge, and the team that allow their properties to run smoothly. The ones who treat it as a completely hands-off income stream from day one are the ones who end up with nightmare tenants, unexpected losses, and properties they eventually want to walk away from. If you are serious about building real passive income through rental properties, invest in your education first, build your systems before your first tenant arrives, and treat every decision as a long-term business decision rather than a short-term cash grab. If you are ready to take that seriously and build your rental property business the professional way, my Effective Property Management course is exactly where you need to start. Become a member today by clicking the link in the description and let us build something that actually works for the long term. See you in the next video.